Although people many times, when they think of philosophy, think of something that's very abstract or pretentious or a field of study that doesn't really matter, it actually does. And it matters in a lot of ways. So today, I want to give you 10 reasons why philosophy matters and why you should start to study it. And the first reason is because philosophy is a second order discipline. What this means is that philosophy comes prior to all of these other disciplines and fields of study that exist. For example, science or politics or theology. In many ways, philosophy actually acts upon studying these domains of study and asking what is required before we can even begin to advance into those domains of study. It makes us ask questions about why we believe what we believe, or why a field of study is even worth studying in the first place. An example for all of this actually comes from something like science. In order to do science, you have to presuppose things like logic or reason or uniformity in nature to even show why science is worth studying and able to be done in the first place. However, science or empirical investigation can't actually justify these itself. For example, you can't look and find logic within a microscope, or you can't find logic in a test tube. That's always a popular example or way to phrase it. Instead, you have philosophy that again comes prior to science to explain why science is able to be done in the first place, because it can work to justify logic or justify all of these preconditions to science in the first place. Essentially, philosophy is the foundation upon which every other rational inquiry stands. Going right off of that, the second reason I have here is that philosophy is important because it helps sharpen your critical thinking. What's really neat and important about philosophy, and it's actually a core tenet of it, is it teaches you how to think and not necessarily what to think. It'll really help you when examining things like arguments to find whether or not an argument is valid or invalid, whether or not it contains logical fallacies or whether or not it doesn't contain logical fallacies. It'll help you yourself work to construct good arguments and avoid constructing bad arguments. It'll also help you in a broad sense to really refrain from falling into contradiction. It'll help you again to spot contradictions as well. And although this cannot be eliminated completely, philosophy does help in helping you to resolve disagreements and such in a more critical or intelligible way rather than in a strictly emotional way. And because of all of that, again, it'll help you to sharpen your own critical thinking. The third reason why philosophy is important is because it will help you to expose your own personal biases. Everybody has a worldview, but what philosophy will do is help you to find the underlying assumptions that build your own worldview. And when we are forced to examine those assumptions that we hold within our worldview, it can help us to expose the fact that there are areas where, because of those assumptions, we may be biased and may not be looking at something as critically as we could if that bias didn't exist. So as a result of doing that, it helps you become much more intellectually honest and more self-aware of those biases and what you can do about them. And sticking with worldviews, the fourth reason for why philosophy is important is because it can help you to build a more coherent worldview. Philosophy will help you to connect the dots between all of these big important questions in life or important fields of study within philosophy, things like knowledge, ethics, epistemology, metaphysics. Once you understand these and you start to examine them, you can start to see how maybe your worldview isn't as coherent as you may think, and how you can use these domains of study to improve it and to build a more coherent and adhered worldview. You can start to make sure that your arguments and your positions and your beliefs hang together in a tight fashion rather than being loosely connected and essentially falling apart. And going right off of that, the fifth reason why philosophy is important is it can help you to see your worldview and see everything in a holistic fashion rather than a strict, limited fashion. Again, when you study philosophy, you'll begin to see that all of these different fields, all of these different things end up connecting together. And when you realize that, it's very, very hard to not go about life from then on out without that realization in the back of your mind. And so as a result, you begin to see life holistically. From a wider field of view, it makes you become somebody who sees the world with a big picture mindset. It helps you to make sense of chaos in a lot of ways, and it can also help you to stop living life on a sort of intellectual autopilot. Continuing on from there, the sixth reason that I have for why philosophy is so important is because it can actually help you become a better communicator. Think about it. If you develop good philosophy, and as a result, as we've been talking about, that leads to good thinking, then almost necessarily it has to lead to better communication, because your communication is obviously an outpouring of your thoughts. It'll really help you to understand the things you're saying, understand the terms that you are speaking. It'll help you to make better arguments, more well-structured arguments, more coherent arguments. It'll also help you to learn to understand other people's point of views before attacking them or before reasoning about them. And because of all of that, you'll start to see an improvement in your relationships, whether or not it be with friends or families or maybe somebody you disagree with, and you start to talk to them, you'll start to see that you can respect them more. And if you understand their view more, they'll start to respect and understand yours more as well. Or at least you'll learn to respect them and they'll learn to respect you because of this improved communication. The seventh reason I have for why philosophy is so helpful is it really humbles you, and it makes you very intellectually humble. What I've definitely realized, and what I know a lot of people definitely realize when they begin to study philosophy and stuff, is that the more you read, the more the study, the more you learn, the less you actually know in a way. Because obviously that's over exaggerated, but you really do start to realize that there are hundreds upon hundreds of brilliant thinkers throughout history that have studied these really important questions, and yet it doesn't seem like a verdict has really been reached on pretty much any of them. That realization is incredibly humbling, and that humbling feeling you get is not something that is sad. It's actually amazing, and it's actually an amazing feeling to have, because you get to participate in this field of study that has brought so many brilliant ideas and stuff out. And even if you realize that maybe you aren't as smart as you once thought, it only drives you to want to learn and study more. And because of this, it really does push you to want to learn more and to, again, humble you to seek rather than pretending that we have all the answers already. All right, the eighth reason for why philosophy is important is it helps you to straighten out your morality and your ethics. Philosophy will help you to find out why something in your view is right or wrong, what makes something right, what makes something wrong, what is good, what is bad. This is really important because morality and ethics, especially like the whole domain of ethics, actually penetrates and affects more of your decisions and your beliefs in daily life than you may actually think. Whenever a politician says something or something happens in the news, for example, you automatically apply ethical categories to what the politician said or what the news article is about before you even reason about it. We do this because intrinsically we have something within ourselves that makes us want to ask, is this right? Is this wrong? How does this cohere with the rest of my beliefs? It can help you to make your ethics more grounded and less pure reactionary. Moving on, the ninth reason I have for why philosophy is important is it will genuinely make you a more interesting person. Something that happens pretty quickly within the beginning of studying philosophy is that you begin to ask really important and more interesting questions. Or when you're watching a movie or reading a book or a poem or something, you will actually start to notice the deeper or the hidden meaning behind the movies or the books or the poems. And because of that, you can actually draw that out to have really interesting discussions with people. A really interesting example of this is books like Crime and Punishment or The Idiot or The Gambler by Dostoevsky, because within those, he is exploring deep philosophical topics. And yes, you can read those without an understanding of philosophy and come away thinking that was a really good book, or I kind of learned something from that. But when you start to look at them deeper, you'll start to understand the hidden meaning behind them. And something amazing that philosophy provides that is really important is that, especially in our adult lives, it can make you curious again, something that we lose a lot of times. And it can spark almost a form of imagination within you, of wonder. I know it has done that for me, and that is something very important. and that, in my opinion, we need in our lives. And philosophy will do that for you when you find, especially that domain of philosophy that really interests you. And for the 10th reason why I believe philosophy is very important is kind of a more religious one, but it can actually help strengthen your faith or actually give you a reason for your faith in the first place. Christian theology is built upon very important questions like what is truth? What is good? Does God exist? All of these questions are very important because faith is, by definition, belief built upon evidence. The idea of blind faith is actually a misnomer that really misses the mark of what faith is. I have an entire video on that if you want to go watch that. I'm not going to be defending that here, but that is what it means. You can go watch my other video for that. But suffice it to say, it is very important for that reason. But even if you aren't religious, it can actually still help in that respect, because the question of religion, whether or not God exists, is one of the most important questions there is. Arguably, from both atheists and theists alike, it is the most important question you can ask. And so having a very good understanding, a very deep understanding of all of these philosophy of religion questions is very important. So philosophy is important for that reason, whether or not you're an atheist or a theist, because it explores all of these very important questions. But if you are a theist, it's also important because a lot of the greatest Christian thinkers and theologians there ever were also philosophers. Think of Alvin Plantinga, who's a contemporary philosopher. Think of Aquinas. Think of Augustine. Even people like C.S. Lewis, who, although he did not consider himself to be a philosopher in the strict sense of having, for example, a PhD in philosophy, they could be considered a philosopher, and a lot of his texts do very much sound like philosophy. But regardless, it is very important for that reason. But those are the 10 reasons why philosophy is so important. If you want to deepen your worldview, please do not skip out on philosophy. Philosophy isn't just about these crazy abstract arguments. It's about living very thoughtfully in a noisy world. And us, our worldview, we're inside of that noisy world. And so that's why it is so important to study philosophy to bring order to all of that chaos that exists. Plato once wrote in his Apology that Socrates said that the unexamined life is not one worth living. That is one of the most important and popular quotes within philosophy, and almost any intro to a philosophy class, for example, is going to say that. But it says it for a reason, because it's very true. We have a beautiful gift that is reasoning, or the ability to reason, and so why would we not use it? But with that, that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please let me know down below if there's any other reasons why you believe philosophy is important, and to explain maybe why there are other things that we can explore within philosophy that can bring great clarity to your life, or even give you another reason for why we should study philosophy. But with that, I thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a very blessed day.